welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of IPWatchdog Unleashed. This week we have a very special guest, all the way from the other side of the world, really. We have joining us Daren Tang, who is Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization. He's in town, and he stopped by IPWatchdog Studios and is going to have a conversation with us. And Director General, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Well, Gene, thank you so much for bringing me to this part of DC. I've lived here for a year when I was studying at Georgetown. But I've never been to your part of this part of the world, and we're just super near the airport. But it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for all that you're doing and that Renee are doing, right, to promote the cause of IP, not just in America, but around the world. I really appreciate being here. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here very, very much. And I know you've been to this part of Virginia, but this is sort of like a drive-through part of Virginia because everybody from overseas comes to beautiful Loudoun County because of Dulles International Airport. We're only like a little over 5 minutes away from the airport, so I'm glad that the timing all worked out. Yeah. And you're actually heading back to Geneva tonight, right?
I'm headed back to Geneva tonight. I just was in San Diego and I was in DC for a couple of days. I was giving the keynote at the IP Owners Association annual meeting. And then here in DC was engaging with U.S. Chamber of Commerce and government officials and just making sure that we continue to keep close ties with all the American stakeholders here.
Yeah, we talked about doing this. You probably remember. You were also here in the U.S. during the National Inventors Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and we talked about doing this, and I'm really glad it worked out. And I'm glad the timing worked out, and we wound up not doing it then because since then we have news, and many people already know this, but your first term is winding down, and you have been renominated for another term as Director General. Congratulations, number one.
Thank you so much.
Good luck, number two.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you an open microphone to what are your thoughts on that honor, really? Because your government had to renominate you.
Yeah. I think first of all, it's a real honor to be supported by Singapore for a second term. But I think also it's been looking back, it's been 5 years into my 6-year term, and lots of things have happened. I came in when it was COVID, so it's a very, very special time. At the time, no one was in the office, and travel was not possible. So taking over WIPO at the time when there was COVID, right, was unusual. But I think what we have done in the last 5 years, or what I've tried to do in the last 5 years, right, is really to transform what WIPO means and what intellectual property means, IP means, not just in places like America where IP has been part of your journey for so long, but for other parts of the world as well, where IP is beginning to be part of your journey as well. And so I think a lot of the work we've been doing for the last 5 years has been how can we make IP not just for experts and lawyers and technical people like us, but how can it be something that accompanies someone's got a great idea, someone who's doing some amazing research, someone who's just doing innovation and doing something creative, right? How can it be part of their journey as well? So I think that's been really a big part of what I've been trying to do for the last 5 years.
Well, I think you've been doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
And I think it's fair to say WIPO has been much more active.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
That's been our intent. And that's been something that we have tried to do from day one. Because one of the things that I wanted to do when I campaigned for this job, 5 over years ago, was to take IP away from something that was seen as only for a small group of countries that were playing the IP game for a long time, to make it part of the journey for many, many other countries as well. And also, IP is not just for those, again, who are experts and professionals, right? But for small, medium enterprises, for young entrepreneurs, so that it became mainstream. And so I think what we've been doing at WIPO, right? First of all, we've continued making sure that we provide the best possible services to those who need to protect and register their IP across different countries. And in fact, I think about 80,000 American companies have used our WIPO global services, Madrid, Hague, and the PCT, of course, in the last 5 years. So one of the things you're doing is that make sure that those services are improving, make sure that we bring in technology to make ourselves more efficient, but always thinking about how can we provide value to American entrepreneurs and inventors and innovators, right, as they use our services, and not just for American enterprises, but for enterprises around the world. So that's one thing we've been doing, really trying to make sure that we add value to. And that's very special about WIPO, right? WIPO is the only UN agency, right, where we see people as clients and we talk about enterprises as our customers. Yeah.
Sometimes I think, and don't take this the wrong way, and I don't think you will, but I don't think of WIPO as a UN agency.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that.
You know, UN agencies sometimes seem to be overly political. Yeah, they seem to have in some ways mission creep, and then a lot of times, unfortunately, seem to under-deliver. And there's been there's a lot of controversy a lot of times, and maybe that's just the nature of so many different member states and such a budget and so forth. It seems like, particularly since you've been at WIPO, it feels like smooth sailing. Yeah. And your single-mindedness about being really an apostle for IP. Yeah. And not just you, but you know, your whole team.
The team, yeah.
And we've had Lisa Jorgensen come to our events, and she's well known. She's here in the U.S. And Andres Jokity's been very generous with. He's been on this podcast. He's been on my stage before, and I just get the sense that you all seem very happy. Yeah,
I'm glad.
And two, you all seem to just be very single-mindedly focused on letting people know about the virtues of IP.
Well, we believe in IP. IP to me is one of the most powerful mechanisms and tools that connects an idea with the market. I mean, before there was IP, before we had the IP system, and before Venice came up with this idea of protecting an idea through a patent, people were innovating, of course, right? For we as human beings, we've been innovating for hundreds of thousands of years. Think about fire, agriculture, the wheel, and all of that. But what IP did was that it connected that idea and that innovation, right, more directly with the market and with society. If you were innovating, right, 1,000 years ago, and you had a great idea, right, you had to go to a lord or some aristocrat or the king or an emperor, right, and say, please, can I have your permission and can I have some money, right, to bring that idea and make it reality. But IP changed that. And IP changed that at the time, even when most countries, right, were monarchies. So the IP system started chipping away at that. And with the modern IP system that came into place 130 years ago, Paris and Bern, and then after that, that's been, the IP systems, we've allowed people, right, with a great idea, right, to connect directly to the market and to connect directly with society. And to me, one of the most fundamental things about who we are as human beings is that we are curious, we are inventive, we translate knowledge, right, to solving things. So to me, the IP system is not just about laws and rules or about even the modern treaty system and the whole network of treaties that WIPO administers, right? It's really about supporting what is a very fundamental part of what it means to be a human being. So when we view our job in this broad way, almost spiritual way, it makes you happy that and it gives you a lot of joy that you are supporting that. And that's why, beyond the need to make sure that all the member states of WIPO, all 194 now, by the way, because Micronesia just joined us in July, how can we help these countries, right, to draw on the ideas that they have and the people in these countries, right, to be able to make them a reality? How can we help them to, just like you had in the US, right, build a vibrant society and economy based on innovation, based on creativity? And that's really, I think that's why people at WIPO are excited about the work they do. And you talk about the UN, right? I wouldn't talk much about the other UN agencies, but yes, we are a UN agency, but we've traditionally been very close to the private sector because we support them, we work with them. It gives us a very different business model from other UN agencies. We are 97% self-financing, which means that we don't need to burden member states with a lot of contributions. And right now, as you know, that's been a big issue in many other UN agencies. Mm-hmm. But I think the most important thing is that we get things done to help innovators, right, get things done. And I think that's the reason why my team, and the people at WIPO, right, are excited about the work, because there's nothing more exciting than meeting people, right, who dream about new things, who would think about new ways of looking at the world and saying that let's support them. See, and I think the mission of WIPO is itself just super exciting, super meaningful, and I think that's the reason why we find real joy in our work.
Yeah. What's the most exciting part of what you're doing, and what makes you most happy that you've been a part of, or however you want to answer that? And what I'm getting at there is it would seem to me, just to maybe tell you which direction I'm thinking about here, is it seems to me that one of the things, a big part of what WIPO does is tries to get countries like Micronesia, not to pick them out on purpose or anything, but there's a lot of countries that are new to the game, that are joiners, that are figuring it out. You know, we do in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce every year does their annual report, and there's a whole bunch of countries that get the importance of IP, and they are affirmatively trying to have better laws, better cultures, so that they move up, so they attract. Because they understand if we attract the business, we attract the innovators, we attract the creators, it benefits society. Jobs, value, everything.
Investments, and,
everything.
Economic growth.
Which part of that is the most exciting to you? Is it working with the new countries and seeing the sparkle, the hope in their eyes? Is it working with established countries to make sure that they continue to understand the importance? Because sometimes when you have it good, it's easy to take your eye off the ball. I mean, so which piece of the puzzle gets you out of bed?
I think there are a couple of things that are exciting. I think first, meeting people on the ground. When I go to these countries, I travel a lot as part of work, because when you try and promote something as new for many countries, and even here in the US, right, many people still don't understand the importance of IP. But when you go around the world and you talk about these things, and you have to be there in person, I'm making an effort to meet people on the ground. And for me, one of the most touching moments, right, of my last 5 years was when we were in Namibia, in the capital of Namibia, Windhoek, I think about 2 years ago, my first official visit to Namibia. And we met with 10 women entrepreneurs out of a group of 50 that had been mentored by WIPO, right, to bring IP into their business journey. Now, these women were from all over Namibia. They're not filing patents in AI and 6G but they're just very down-to-earth women entrepreneurs from villages, taking village products, sometimes were jams, sometimes they were fruit juices, or they were local cosmetics to the Namibian and the African market. And what we did was that we helped to mentor them to bring IP into that journey, because if they're going to be branding, they need to make sure that they have trademark protection. And after they get trademark protection, right, they needed to see whether they could use that to commercialize by thinking about franchising. And one after the other, right, I met with them, and in front of the Namibian ministers, some of them were crying, and they're saying that WIPO's support for them, right, and the training we gave them not only changed the way they look at business, not only changed their perception of IP, of course, but gave them confidence that what they're doing, right, was important enough that someone would pay them attention and give them the tools to succeed. And it's moments like that you realize that the work that you do can make a difference. And in that case, right, we made a difference to those, 10, 15 Namibian women. And we're doing projects like that throughout the world. I think in the last 5 years, WIPO has trained 600,000 people. So beyond the registries, beyond the services that we provide to companies, right, a lot of work we're doing now is how do we bring the IP into the journey of people, right? Whether they are in research, whether they're a designer, whether they are a creator, an artist, or a entrepreneur, a business owner, a startup founder, all over the world, right? How do we help them to make sure the IP is part of their journey? And so I think that to me was emotionally very satisfying, meeting these people and then hearing them tell me how WIPO's work and how IP has changed their lives. And I think that's just amazing. And the other thing that I found very exciting, right, has been how can we use WIPO to be a place, right, where despite political differences, member states roll up their sleeves and get things done. And one example of that were the 2 treaties that we concluded last year. There was one on design law treaty, and the other one, of course, was on genetic resources and traditional knowledge. Whatever your views on them, whatever you think about them, right, to see 193 countries come together, negotiate, put aside differences, fight. Of course, they had to fight, and they had to, they're all. But in the end, find that way forward, right? I think that was also very, very inspiring. So I think the job gives you satisfaction at the systems level, at the architecture level, though that takes a lot longer because those negotiations were 20 years in the making, right? But the part that's emotionally very satisfying is when you see how it's changed the lives of people on the ground. And I think that's very, very powerful. Yeah.
And it probably not only changes the lives of the people who you touch, but for those women that you were just referring to in Africa, their whole communities. I mean, because now they're succeeding. Yeah. And they're succeeding in their communities, and they're hiring people, and they're it changes. It just changes lives. And sometimes I just sometimes get frustrated because I think people often think intellectual property gets in the way, and they're not going to say that there aren't people who abuse their rights, because there are, but I think that misses the forest for the trees. I mean, that buries the lead about what IP can and does do for people, for societies, for patients, for people who love the arts. It's a community building.
IP is so important, right, for community, because when you give these entrepreneurs, right, a chance to succeed with their new idea, you give them a chance to create jobs for other people. You give them a chance to solve challenges that are community-based or even sometimes global problems that need to be addressed. And in now the work that we do, we find now that we piloted this new way of providing support, looking at IP. And by the way, this mentoring programs that we do, it's 6 to 12 months. So it's not flying in somewhere. Yeah. Doing a 2-day seminar or 3-day workshop and flying out and then you're on your own. But we accompany these people on their journey, right, for 6 to 12 months. So it's a really intense way of working with them.
And that's so critically important. I mean, that's one of the things I've tried to do at IPWatchdog, because before we started doing our own live programs and stuff, the thing that frustrated me, and frustrating isn't maybe the right way to say it, so I'll just tell you what I'm thinking here. Yeah. You go to an event, you have great conversations. Yeah. Everybody identifies problems and concerns and has great ideas, and we need to do this and advocate for this. And, in a lot of these events, you get people who fundamentally disagree with each other. But you have good conversations over food and drink and panel discussions and everything. And everybody gets so energized. Yeah. And then you go home. Happens, and it doesn't. So one of the things I've always really tried to do is continue the conversation. And not have it stop. Just in having a publication and being the one who was in charge. Now Eileen McDermott, our editor-in-chief, is largely in charge of publication. But we work together. But so we do have the ability to continue pushing the conversation forward. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think that is a critical piece. That is often missing.
Gene, the thing is this, one of the things that we try and do at WIPO, and I think that sets us apart from some of the other agencies, international agencies, right, is that after the talking, right, there must be action. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of the things that we do, right, we just don't want to be a glorified talk shop. And that's one of the problems, right, with UN agencies. People see UN agencies having endless negotiations, discussions, papers that are put out, right? And they don't see the impact on them in their lives. Right. And so it's natural that some people begin to wonder, right? So what do they really do? Apart from being a place where diplomats come and have, a nice place to talk and in a nice city like Geneva, right? What impact is there on the ground? See, so there's a lot of the things that I've tried to bring to WIPO, and probably this comes a bit from my Singapore background as well. We are quite obsessive compulsive about getting things done.
Practical
is to get things done, you see. So after these conversations, after these nice discussions, there's momentum, there's a lot of energy around, then we want to lock that down, right, into getting things done, see. So for example, the 600,000 people that we have trained in the last 5 years, we've set up 1,800 technology innovation support centers in 80 countries. These will become tech transfer offices in time to come, so that research that's happening in different parts of the world can have a pathway to commercialization. And it's not easy to build these pathways, but they deserve that. Things like CLIP, which is a very interesting project we did with some of the most experienced musicians in the world, including Beyond from ABBA, where we created a free online platform to allow musicians to know about copyright and IP and the music industry, right, so that they can earn a decent living as musicians. and many other things, that we're doing in order to really bring IP to the grassroots. And I think this, again, is important because you're right, that's not just giving back the community, but if you're going to raise IP standards in other countries that don't see the value of IP, right, it starts with showing them the value of IP, right, at their local level. Right. And so these women entrepreneurs in these countries, or youth entrepreneurs, or business owners that we support, they then become the ambassadors for IP, right, for us, for all of us, right, in their own country. They are the ones to tell their leaders, right, or their business associations, or their political leadership, right, take IP seriously because it's helping me, and we need to have IP help not just me, but many others in our country as well. So we're trying to shift the logic of IP, right, and the logic that IP standards need to be raised away from a traditional conversation where it's from the outside. Traditionally, when you talk about raising IP standards, right, it's been part of trade negotiations or part of some grand package where, in return for market access, right, country A reluctantly increases its IP, it lifts up its IP standards. We want that to shift. We want that to be something that country A is doing because they feel that's part of their journey as well. And so they look at South Korea, for example, that's done so well in the last 30, 40 years, right? And especially with creative economy, with K-pop, and they want that to be part of their journey. So WIPO's job is to give them that, and to give them the programs and help them draft the laws and put in place the right policies and strategies, right, so that IP becomes part of their journey as well. And I have to say this, I'm seeing a shift in the world on this. I'm seeing a real shift, and that part is super exciting.
Yeah, I am too. And I also, maybe to throw some props out to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as well, because one of the things I think when they started doing their study of the leading economies, and they do 50 or 60 economies, and they look at it, the very first one is certainly different than the one that came out last year.
Yeah.
And they're very early on, it seemed to me, and maybe you noticed this as well, where that became, to some extent, an objective metric that politicians who maybe don't really understand what we do, they don't understand IP, but they want to encourage business, they want to encourage people in their countries, they can look at this and say, well, geez, that's not where I want us to be on the list. I want us to be much higher on the list. And I'm pretty sure I can say this factually. Maybe you could discuss it. But countries, leaders, members of parliament look at that list and, well, what can we do to make our system better? And I think that may be a moment over the last 10 or 15 years that really woke a lot of countries up in a very good, positive direction and created a healthy competition.
So, Gene, I think what happened was that there was that dynamic happening in the last 10 or 15 years. Countries were looking at these metrics and saying that what can we do to use these metrics to attract investments and to lift our standards up. But I think the big shift came with COVID. I came in when it was COVID. I think COVID made a lot of countries, right, developing and emerging economies, rethink where would growth come from. And I think a lot of them realized that growth could no longer come from commodities or tourism or infrastructure. It needed to come from innovation, from entrepreneurship, from developing a digital economy, from developing a creative economy. And I think WIPO was there, stars were aligned, and when we came in, right, to say, hey, we need to rethink growth. And part of that, right, means that you need to rethink IP, not as something from the outside coming in, but something from the inside, right, that will help you. So that's been a big shift. And I think what we're seeing, just some very concrete things, we're seeing more developing countries take IP really seriously. So, for example, Egypt. Egypt established a new Egyptian IP authority, and the head of this authority has got cabinet minister rank, which we don't even get here in the U.S. or in many other developed countries.
Don't even start. I think we should. I mean, as big a part of the economy as IP is, it should have that status.
It should. And, and interestingly, by the way, South Korea just announced that the head of the IP office will have cabinet minister rank. I think they're going to elevate in South Korea the IP office to a ministry of IP. So what we're seeing is that we're seeing countries, and I can tell the same for other countries as well. Kenya, for example, I was just in Kenya recently. They're merging their IP institutions to form one common IP office it used to be fragmented into 3 or 3 institutions.
I get it. That's what I think we in the U.S. need to do. I mean, because we have the Patent and Trademark Office already. Then we have the Copyright Office, and I think that pulling all of that together would acknowledge the reality that IP drives so much of our economy. So to hear less developed economies doing this, that is a huge step in the right direction.
And see, the thing is this, it's a lot of it is driven by the fact that in the modern innovation economy, the line between hardware and software is blurring.
Yes.
And what you're seeing is that the most innovative companies are combining entertainment, machines, content, and code, right? And providing these combinations of digital, industrial, creative, innovation, right, into a package. Think about the video games industry, or about the biggest concert last year was not held in person, but was held on Fortnite, which is the big gaming platform. Your kids probably would or whoever's teenage kids would know about Fortnite, and 14 million people watch a concert concurrently on Fortnite. That's more than the population of New York and Los Angeles combined.
Yeah.
And it's happening online. So I think what's happening there as the world moves towards a combination of digital and industrial innovation. By the way, 1/3 of all patents are connected to digital technologies. The line between different types of IP that we hold here as the IP community are different discrete forms of jurisprudence and legislation. The line is beginning to blur, and IP is becoming a portfolio of interlocking business and financial assets that are going to drive economies and drive enterprise growth. And that's where the future of IP is going to be. It's a business and financial asset.
So I could not agree with you anymore. And one of the things that does frustrate me, and I won't ask you to comment on this, but if you want to riff on part of it, that's fine.
Right, yeah.
But it frustrates me that so much of, and I'll talk about the U.S. economy for now, so much of the U.S. economy is driven by IP rights. Trillions of dollars a year. It's like at least 40% of the U.S. economy.
90% of SAP and 90% of the S&P 500 is in intangible assets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
90%.
You take away the IP and they value nothing.
Yeah.
But we don't even value the IP properly, and this is a frustrating thing. I'm told by the people who know accounting standards that there's no place on the books that you can value IP that you yourself create. And it's like, well, that's just insane.
It's a shame. It's a shame.
So much value could be unlocked by just common sense accounting changes, right? And so that's frustrating. But because of things like that, I also think it's frustrating that we have so many people who are CEOs and members of the board of directors at so many different companies.
Who don't pay attention to IP because it's not on the account books, right?
And they don't know it, right? It's, and I always say this, if you are a hammer, the world looks like a nail, right? So if you hire somebody to be on your board who is an employment lawyer, everything's going to be an HR issue. You hire somebody, but consequently, the same thing is also true. If you hire somebody put on your board who's an IP person, they're going to focus on that. And I just don't think and this is, so in the developed world, I don't see enough attention paid to that. And I don't understand why. I mean, because I remember when I was in law school, this is a story I tell a lot. So if people, you've heard this, bear with me. When I was in law school, we had a senior member of Coca-Cola's management team come and speak to us, Franklin Pierce. And he said, tonight, every tangible piece of property Coca-Cola owns could burn to ash. And he said, and tomorrow, by pledging our trademark portfolio, we will have more money than we need to rebuild. I mean, that's the power.
That's the power of IP here.
Of IP.
That's the power of IP here.
So a couple thoughts, and maybe you don't have an answer to the first one, but hopefully
I've got a lot of things to say on this one.
What do we do to within the developed world who maybe, and this is what I was referring to earlier, I think sometimes, unfortunately, you're succeeding so much, you kind of maybe take your eye off the ball a little bit. And then is this important message about your leaders really understanding this, getting through to the developing countries?
So first, right, in developed countries, I think this is like the fish that swims in the water, but doesn't recognize that the water is all around it. I think in developed countries, there is a taking for granted of IP rights because it's been so much a part of the economy, so much a part of society, right? And maybe to be fair, we IP people, right, have not been great at communicating the value of IP in a way, right, that ordinary people can understand. So I think one of the things that WIPO is trying to do is to work with as many partners, right, including in developed countries. And I spoke about this, the US Chamber of Commerce with IPO, right? Let's get the message about IP out there so that people in America and in other countries understand that IP is not just about, something abstract for lawyers or for big companies, right? IP helps their high school classmate to be a successful entrepreneur. IP helps their son or daughter, right, to who's creating something, a piece of music, right, to earn a living from that. I mean, we need to tell the stories better. But on this point, right, about the invisibility of IP, I've called IP and intangible assets, right, the dark matter of the modern economy, because it's such a heavy component of the modern economy, and yet we don't account for it properly on accounting books. Valuation exists, but it's not very fungible or not very trusted. Collateralization of these assets is very, very patchy, and its connection, right, with financial flows and the finance economy and trade and all of that, right, it's not well known. So that needs to change, because if the modern economy is based more and more on these assets, and we don't understand these assets, we don't know how to monetize them, right, to value them, right, that's a big problem. And so I think what WIPO is trying to do is that we're trying to raise attention of this. And I think the reason why it's been like that is that our accounting systems and financial systems, right, were geared towards the traditional industrial economy. And they have not been updated, right, to take into account the modern innovation-based economy. So let's take accounting standards, right? If you create IP, it's not reflected as an asset on your accounting books. It's reflected as an expense.
Which is crazy.
Doesn't make sense. So WIPO is trying to work with the International Accounting Standards Board that's based in New York, and they're reviewing the accounting standards in this area. And we're hoping to work with them, right, over the next few years. It's not just WIPO's work. I mean, a lot of other people are also working on this to see whether the rules and the accounting standards can be updated, right, to reflect the modern economy. Because if
this is the first I'm hearing about this, but this is this is
a game changer. It's going to be a game changer.
Oh, absolutely, enormously worthwhile. And anything I can do, not that I can, but if I can do anything, let me know, because I do believe that is going to be a huge game changer. Because right now you couldn't possibly borrow money on your IP assets in any kind of sensible way, because you're not. You're right. You put it down on your books as an expense. Not as it could be. It could be a $1 billion asset. And it's put down as a cost. And you don't value it until you sell it. And it's just so what that then unfortunately means is that the person who acquires it, if they acquire it, they get all the value, and the person who created it it's reflected as an asset only if you buy it.
Right. So it creates all these transfer pricing issues, and there's intra-corporate transfers. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Oh my God! So I hope you get another term just to see this through. Well, and since I brought that up, let me ask you, before I ask you what you want to accomplish maybe in your next term. You pointed to helping the women in Africa as a real bright spot during your first term. Are there any other like things that when they write your not, I don't want to say
obituary.
I wasn't going to say that, but when they write your story for your retirement party, and they're going through all the list of things that you accomplished during I'll say hopefully is just your first term. Because I do hope you get a second term.
Thank you so much, Ian.
Personally, but what accomplishments other than that one do you hope get put on that list?
I think first, right, fundamentals, running the agency well, making sure that we have the good culture, making sure that we bring our passion to support innovators through an office culture, right, that is healthy, with high governance standards, so that people can bring their best to work each day. So we start with the fundamentals. And I think that's something that's been a quite a large part of my work, because as the head of a UN agency, I'm not just there to manage the politics of the agency. I'm there to make sure that as the chief executive of the agency, right, we run it well. So I think fundamentally, right, first and foremost, running WIPO well and making sure that the culture works well. Second thing is making sure that, and I think what's been satisfying is seeing that more and more companies are using WIPO services to obtain cross-border protection for their patents and trademarks and designs. We've seen an increase in the filings of PCT Madrid and Hague, and we want that to continue. And not just that, but arbitration mediation. A lot of users are American companies, but other users as well. So I think that's the second part. And I think injecting a lot more of that customer service perspective, right, into WIPO, because coming from a national IP office, and as the first DG from a national IP office, national IP officers are very focused on customer service because that's part of the national ethos. And I wanted to bring that and I've been bringing that to WIPO as well. Then after that, I think it's breaking the north-south divide on IP, where traditionally developing countries felt that IP is not their friend, right. And making sure that they see IP as part of their friend as well. They see IP as a part of the journey, while ensuring that developed countries, right, continue to see IP as important to them. And so we're talking about the 600,000 people we have trained, the technology innovation supports, we have support centers we have set up. We're helping to write IP policies for 2,000 universities. We are writing the national IP strategies for 60 countries, helping them to rethink IP away from just laws and legislation to building up innovation ecosystems. The work we are doing to make sure that creators on the ground are using IP clip and this sort of things, right? Creators learn IP. I think that part has been also very, very rewarding. And then, of course, being a place where multilateral negotiations work through consensus. The 2 new treaties that we concluded last year, one on genetic resources and the other one on design law treaty. And I think also producing reports and studies, right, that help policymakers and thinkers, right, understand innovation. So, for example, the Global Innovation Index that we do every year, and that's being used by an increasing number of countries to put in place pro-innovation, pro-IP policies. I think these are the things that has been, very satisfying for me in the last 5 years. And I think at the end of it all, right, is making sure that IP becomes the center, right, of every economy in the world. IP accompanies every innovator and creator in the world, right? It doesn't matter whether they're from Africa or Asia or Latin America or North America or Europe. IP is first and foremost in their recall when they want to bring an idea to market. They think, okay, IP. I need IP to be part of that journey as well.
Yeah. You really are a believer.
I am. I mean, it's IP. IP has been a game changer for the humanity.
Yeah.
It's really.
But I mean that as a compliment, because you're not you are in a political role to some extent, but you're not a politician. You are one of us. It's clear to me you really are a believer, and I hope that comes across those people who are just listening to this podcast. I mean, because just watching you answer the question, I mean, you almost get a little emotional when you talk about some of these things. It seems.
Yeah. No, I think for me, IP is about the highest, one of the most fundamental things about what it means to be a human being, right?
Yeah.
Which is to look at the world, imagine how it could be different, and apply all our tools and knowledge and energies, right, to making that a reality. And IP is part of facilitating and enabling that. And so if we look at IP at the highest possible form and its highest, broadest way, right, that's what it really is about. I mean, the laws and regulations and all of that is important, building up ecosystems, right? But IP is, at its best, is about helping us as humanity, right, to shape the world and make it a better place. That's why this mission is, for me, is not to be cliched, but it's almost sacred in a way. This is what we should be doing in the IP community.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
So, when is your first term officially over?
So it will be the last day of September next year in 2026. Yeah, it's a 6-year term.
And when are the elections?
Okay, so nominations open on 24th July. They close on the 24th of October this year. So if there are other people running, elections are going to be, I think, on the 12th and 13th of February next year.
Okay.
And then everything gets sorted out probably by then. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometime late winter, early spring, it gets sorted out.
Yeah, by spring, by late spring, around that time, around the April, May period.
Just for people who aren't familiar, we're not able to pinpoint a certain day because there's a process.
Yeah, there's a process. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first decisional process is in February.
Yeah.
And depending upon how, as I understand it, how that goes, there may be another one later on, a month or two after that.
I think February is when all the candidates get voted on. So right now it's the nomination process, and the nomination process ends in late October 24th. And then once we see how many candidates there are, then it goes to the elections, and it's 1 or 2 days, right? And they finish it within 1 or 2 days in February. Yeah. So that's So in my first election, it was all done within 2 hours, right? In 1 day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then isn't there later on? So we know who it is, but then you formally all the members kind of ratify.
So so the elections is with a smaller group of member states called the coordination committee, and there are 83 of them. And then who they vote on gets ratified by the larger 194 members, because now we're 194, I think in April. Yeah. So there's a certain process in place. It's managed by the chair of this coordination committee. And then so the dust will all settle down by April.
So April we'll know for sure, but we kind of know by February.
We kind of know by February, We kind of know by February, Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sincere when I wish you good luck. I think you've been great, and I mean it as a compliment when I say you are a true apostle of IP. I mean, you go everywhere. You clearly are one of us in that you get it, and you have a way about communicating it that. Unfortunately, a lot of people who are in the IP community, we're engineers and scientists, a lot of us.
I know,
And those of us who aren't engineers and scientists are musicians. And, they can sing songs, they can write songs, they can paint. But none of us creative people, whether it's scientifically creative or artistically creative, tend to have a great ability to explain
But
things.
I think, Gene, we have to be bilingual and bicultural as IP community. Amongst ourselves, let's talk technical, because IP is at its heart a very technical subject matter. But once we leave this room and we talk to a business owner or a group of startup founders or to young students in high school or to our parents or to our friends, we need to know how to communicate about IP in a way that they can relate to it. Because if we are in our own world and we only talk to ourselves and we talk in such a way that no one outside understands, it's like a priesthood. And we become irrelevant. We're like talking amongst the 1% of the world, see. So one of the things we need to do in the IP community, is go beyond us as the 1% and reach out to the 99%, which means that we need to know how to shift the way we talk about IP, in different contexts. And I'm sure if we put our mind to it, we can do it.
Yeah. Because,
people like you, that's why I'm also very proud of what you and Renee are doing, because you are communicating about IP, beyond the specialized audience, the things you talk about, and just here in your premises, I mean, just seeing so much amazing patents that you have pulled out from the history of American innovation. I just saw outside here the patents that the Wright brothers filed. Yeah. And people forget that. They forget that IP, helped build the modern aviation industry, And I'm seeing this.
And you touched on something that's it irritates me to no end to hear people say, "Oh, well, the Wright brothers really didn't do anything all that amazing. People would have figured it out, or they were about to figure it." It's like, no. They didn't figure it out because everybody was doing it wrong. It was
they risked their lives. They risked their lives for it.
And the Wright brothers figured out that everybody else was trying to fly like a fish swims. Yeah. Well, a fish swims; it doesn't fly. Yeah. So they started looking at birds and the way the wings warp and move, and that was the breakthrough. And I know there was a lot of patent litigation about it and so forth, but it's an inspiring story. Yeah, it really is. And I love the things Renee has done to decorate our studios here in our offices, because there's so much that touches everybody's life. We have a wall I'm looking at right now, on a sports wall.
Well,
we have baseballs, baseball bats. We have baseball gloves, a hockey mask, the basketball net, all kinds of stuff.
Every congressman and senator should have these things on the walls here.
Right.
Because the American economy and society and what America means to the world is built on IP. Its ability to take ideas from from its people and to commercialize these ideas.
Well, and whatever you're into, whether it's sports or whether it's gadgets or whether it's firearms or whether it's defensive equipment or whether it's artistry, the musical instruments are patented, and Eddie Van Halen famously had patents,
I just visited Taylor Guitars in San Diego after I was there for the keynote. I gave a keynote at IPO. And then I went to visit Taylor Guitars, and it's amazing they've got so much IP, as part of their innovating the manufacturing of guitars. They have their own machines that they created from scratch, so that they could make guitars to their specifications. I mean, that's IP in there.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just amazing, right? Yeah,
and it touches everybody's life.
Yeah,
it does, and so I'm a true believer too, and. The one thing, and I know we've been going for a little bit, and throwing this in at the end is we're not going to do it justice. But I since I have you here, because I do think this will be, and I suppose you are probably going to get a second term. And again, I hope so. Fingers crossed, right?
Fingers crossed, yeah.
During the next term, yours or whoever's, artificial intelligence and IP. And the intersection, and then also to some extent the oil and water nature of it, is I think going to dominate the next 5 or 6 years. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, I think AI, not just Gen AI, because Gen AI is grabbing all the headlines, right? But AI in general, talking about industrial AI, things have been around for the last 15, 20 years. It's just that the amount of data we're feeding it, right? It's on a different scale altogether. I think it's a game changer, but I like to put it in perspective. The IP system, the modern one, right, with Paris and Bern has been around for the last 130 years. And we have seen in the IP community revolutionary technologies in the last 130 years. Airplanes, right? Radios, transistors, the computer, internet. And each time, the IP system, right, has had to adjust a little bit, but the core fundamental role of the IP system, which is to incentivize innovation, to reward innovators, right, as long as we make sure that the IP system continues doing that, right, I'm very certain that the IP system will be here to stay, and not just here to stay, right, but be a fundamental part of the new forms of innovation that AI and then God knows the next wave of technology, right, will bring to us as a human species. So if you ask me, right, I think, yes, AI is a game changer, but it's no different from all the waves of technology that we have encountered in the IP community in the last 130 years. And I'm confident that as long as we keep an open mind, and WIPO is a place where we try and get all the member states and industry and academia and other stakeholders to come and talk about these issues, exchange ideas, exchange best practices, talk and make sure that we keep the communication going, right. I'm sure that the whole community will adjust, and in time to come, whatever needs to be adjusted. Right now, it's still early days yet, to be honest. Even in America and many countries, right, the national positions have not been sorted out. No. So while that is being figured out, and the international positions I always only figure out after the major national positions are figured out. In time to come, yes, the global IP community will find a way to address the global standards in this. I think we are not there yet, but until we arrive there, WIPO will be a place where people come and discuss these issues. And then when that happens, when the world is ready to take it to the next step, right, to talk about global standards, right, WIPO will be there as well.
Yeah.
But I think I'd like to put in perspective that we've seen many technological revolutions in the last 130 years. The key is make sure that IP still continues to incentivize innovation, still continues to reward the innovator, and still continues being a place where, a system, right, where, and I would like to say this might be a bit controversial, but human innovation, human creativity, right, continues to be valued enabled, supported. That to me is the key part of it. Yeah.
So it's music to my ears because when I hear you talk about that issue or any of these other issues, it seems like you start with first principles.
Yeah.
And you back up and say, okay, well, what is IP supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's supposed to help people.
Yeah.
It's supposed to lead to better innovations, more artistic world, a more robust economy, and to open people's minds.
Absolutely,
And I think sometimes when we talk about AI and the influence AI has and the impact of AI on IP, we lose sight of the purpose.
But it's human nature, there's a saying, right? We often overestimate a technology that when it first comes out, but we often underestimate the long-term effects of that technology. So right now, because of this technology and Gen AI and its ability to seemingly talk like a human being, there's a lot of froth out there, and I think it's going to settle down in a bit of time, and we should not be passive, and WIPO is trying to be very active in making people think about it, in issuing toolkits and policy papers, help people understand it better, right? But at the same time, we should not rush to do something, right, that is not necessary. And of course, we go back to the first principles that we say. Mm-hmm. What does IP system does? Let's keep doing that. Reward innovation, reward innovators, right? Reward the creators.
Yeah, I think we'll figure it out. The one thing I do wish we would rush for is nobody seems to be talking about this part of it. I wish we would rush to almost like an Isaac Asimov's 3 Rules for Robots. You know, and the one that interests me the most is AI should do no harm to humans. Yeah. And I say it laughing and joking, but I'm very serious about and I think obviously there's going to be a lot of benevolent creators. But there's always malicious actors out there, call them hackers or call them whatever you want to call them. But I just think that we as a global community should put a stamp down and say, AI must not harm humans.
I don't think...
And maybe that's just the science fiction fan in me that's been conditioned to know that at some point in time, Skynet's going to go live and the robots are going to run the world. But you see some of the things there, and it's like, this could go really poorly.
Yeah, I'm an Asimov fan as well. I read Foundation when I was a teenager, and there's a big series on Apple TV right now on Foundation. So I've been watching that. It's not true to the books. I'm a real purist. I'm like, I should be truer to the books. But reading the whole robot series, iRobot and all of that, right? I think that's what it's about. And I've not met anyone, right, who's disagreed with me that technology is here to serve humanity.
Right.
And we need to make sure that continues on. And for me, right, technology has to serve humanity. AI should enable, empower the human creator, the human innovator, and not destroy or sideline the human innovator and human creator. Now, of course, then the difficulty is how do we balance between all the different things that needs to happen, right? And for me, as someone who used to play music and still loves music, I don't know whether you know this, but I used to play jazz piano very seriously when I was in law school, and my dad said, young man, don't make your passion your profession, just finish law school and just don't make music your life.
Spoken like a true father, right?
Spoken like a true Asian father, right? So, but music's always still been close to my heart. So I feel more about this, right, than anyone else that, technology has always been, and creators have always embraced technology, right? We grew up in a time in the 70s and 80s when people were playing with drum machines and synthesizers and electric pianos and all of that, electric guitars, right? And we should not stop people from doing that, but we just make sure that it doesn't end up, this technology, right, doesn't end up sidelining the human creator.
Well, I don't think it ever will.
Yeah.
And I know people
I don't think so too,
Well, they hear you say ever and never. But as you know, I used to own a long time ago an independent record label.
I just heard,
And I have had a lot of experience. I shared some stories with you. But one of the things that is always stuck with me is when you encounter, and there's all kinds of undiscovered, independent extremely talented artists out there.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
They're undiscovered for a variety of reasons, which requires a longer conversation.
Yeah.
But their talent is unquestionable.
Yeah.
When you hear somebody who, and I'm getting tingles just thinking about this, who really plays music, they are not playing notes.
Yeah.
They are making music.
Yeah.
And like I always use the example of, Animal from the Muppets, the drummer.
Yeah, yeah.
And when he's playing, hands and hair are going all over the place.
Yeah.
When you have a drummer, and that's the way they play, the music they make exudes from them.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that, at least there in my lifetime, we're ever going to get a machine that can do that, because you can technically and perfectly and accurately play every note.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same.
Gene, as someone who plays jazz and improvisation, improvisation
for sure.
is fundamental part of jazz, right? When we improvise in jazz and we play music in general, we tap on emotions, right, to tell a story. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's about putting human emotions, right, into an architecture. And the architecture, right, is music. But it starts with the human emotions. When I play a jazz ballad about a broken heart, I think about my own experiences. That's how musicians draw on. That's why musicians also have a lot of emotional, there is that emotional sensitivity. Think about Bill Evans, right? He was, and many of the jazz musicians or even rock musicians. I know AI doesn't have that. And in fact, if you read and you watch some of these really top level physicists, right? One of them is Roger Penrose, whom people may or may not have heard, and others like him who are top class scientists, right? He's a Nobel Prize winner. They've explained that human consciousness and the human mind, right, cannot be mathematically reduced to algorithms and to code. It's just mathematically not possible. Now, I don't know the technical reasons for it. I know that it sort of confirms my own more instinctive, intuitive biases. But if they are saying that and they are very expected, then I think, it's there's something to it. It's not just my intuition, but really, really top-class physicists and mathematicians, right, have said the same thing as well, see. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe someone out there would...
So the way I would explain it,
Yeah.
and this may be not technical, but I suspect the brain could be mathematically reduced.
Okay, yeah.
But there would still be something missing.
Yeah.
It would look like it's a brain, like it's operating perfectly, and maybe it's just the errors, it's the inflection, it's you were half a beat late on that note, and but it made it real. It makes it real. It makes you as a person real.
Yeah.
Because people aren't perfect.
Yeah.
I think and I think that's one of the things that irritates me. When I hear some of these and I see some of what's going on in the AI space, and you're like, it's remarkable that it's come as far as it is.
Yeah.
But it's clearly, you clearly know you're talking to a robot or you're talking to an AI.
Yeah.
It's just, there's that, for lack of a better way, there's a spark that's missing.
Yeah.
And as long as we have and the language models are great, right? Yeah. But when you're trying to predict the next word, even the algorithms you're doing to try and predict the next word, they're not fluid.
Yeah.
It's that word was this. What's the next word? What's when you're having a conversation? When we're having this conversation right here, right now, I'm not thinking about what my next word is going to be. Yeah. I'm trying to convey a meaning, get a point across, right, and to make a connection. Yeah. And the machines, I think maybe forever, but certainly for a foreseeable future, are connecting dots.
Yeah. I think that they are based on probabilistic, as you say, they predict in a certain way what the next word should be without genuine understanding. And I think there's this guy called John Searle who did a thought experiment called the Chinese room experiment, thought experiment, where he said that if someone is in a room and he doesn't understand Chinese, but he just through sheer statistical fluke is able to produce a series of Chinese characters, to a person who's outside the room, it may seem as if the person in the room understands Chinese, but it's not. It's just a series of statistics. So I think we tend to, as human beings, to attribute humanity, right, or the human spark to words, because it's it's so powerful for us to see. But we must not make the mistake of deifying, AI and technology. And I think that's something which sometimes I hear, not all the time, but sometimes I hear. But I think the good news is that I've spoken to so many people about this, and everyone agrees, right, that technology and AI has to serve humanity. Of course, what does that mean? Maybe we need, and that's beyond IP. That's about maybe the world needs to come together and say that, okay, there needs to be some guardrails, because maybe this technology is so powerful eventually that just like nuclear energy or other forms of technology that's really, really powerful, we need certain parameters that everyone in the world can agree with. And I think the world will head towards that.
I think so. I think we'll get there. And I don't want anybody who's inventing in this space to take what I said. I think these inventions are.
I think it's going to be
remarkable.
It's going to make a good change to our lives. But that's
right. I mean, and some of the medical advances, these computers have such computing power, and with all the algorithms and the learning, they are much more accurate than doctors in some cases, and that's just going to keep getting better and better. So keep innovating. Don't take
exactly.
But I do think we need to have this. Maybe it's an ethics conversation. Maybe it's an international law conversation, because I think it cuts across a whole bunch of disciplines. We see it as the creators, the inventors, and in that end of it. But there's so many different ends to it. So I just always like to bring it up, because I do think the more we talk about these things and the more people hear about things and consider them, that will help us get to a place where it cuts across spaces and industries where we will have a developed and thoughtful policy on this.
Yeah. No, I think it's good that we talk about it. And that's the role at WIPO as well. We want to be a forum where it's neutral, it's professional, it's trusted, it's a big tent. So we want to make sure that it's not just government regulators and policymakers that are in that tent. We want to make sure the industry's in there as well, the innovators, academia, even civil society, because we need to have voices that are diverse. And so I think one of the things we're going to do is this thing called every 6 months we have an IP and frontier technology conversation. The themes for the last few conversations have been on Gen AI, and I'm pleased to say that about 14,000 people have attended from 170 countries.
Wow!
So which means that we are a place where people come talk about these things.
Yes,
and I think that's important because without those conversations, everyone runs off to do their own thing. And when you're talking about a technology that's this game changing, it needs a global perspective. It needs global solutions. So I think that's important.
Well, thank you for a wonderful conversation. That was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you being here. Safe travels home, and I will hopefully get to see you in April.
Come to Geneva and be with us. Come and visit the global home of IP.
I would love to. And Renee's on board, and we're already going to be going to Ireland for the LES International.
Okay,
and so we're already going to be
April.
That's at the end of April.
Okay,
and
I think Inter's after that as well.
Inter is I think London, it may even be the week or two after that. So there's a lot going on then.
Okay,
But so I'll follow up with you guys. But I would absolutely love to come over and see you in WIPO.
Well, we would love to welcome you
and
there.
Hopefully then, and I know
there.
I keep saying this, but I do. I mean, I like you as a person, and I think what you've done with WIPO has been fantastic. So
thank you so much.
Hopefully we can celebrate a new term when I see you next.
I hope to have good news for you soon.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
All right,
thanks so much. Thanks, Gene. Yeah.